Wow, what an amazing bio. It sounds much more better than when he reads it than when I actually lived it. Well, 2019 class, this is your first step in proving to the world your strength by showing up today at 9 a.m. graduation weekend on a Sunday morning. Hats off to you. Thank you, Chancellor Yang, Dean Charlie Hale, Dan O, faculty, staff, and the upper echelons of academia that sit behind me for giving me this opportunity to speak to you today. If I had a glass of champagne right now and several thousand bottles, I'd pop them open to toast all of you. Not just to celebrate you, but to give you a little bit of the hair of the dog, because I know you guys probably need it today. 23 years ago, I was you. I sat out there. But I was also given the microphone to speak at that time. But it wasn't to address my classmates. It was because the MC couldn't pronounce my name. Just like Kavimba Nashe Chukikuhua. Very close. But the one thing I remember about being you was that I was a little bit torn, a little conflicted. It wasn't because I wasn't excited about being here and celebrating, but there was a pit in my stomach, and I couldn't quite remember why or what it was from. Looking back, I remember that that pit had spawned from the reality that just days from now, and perhaps moments, you're making a swift exit from this gorgeous, heavenly campus, this beach, this weather, to embark on a journey and leave some of your dearest friends that you've met in your life, to face a future of uncertainty in a world in which you've been incubated from for the last 4 years. You're going to confront a new chapter in your life. And I thought, well, I'm leaving the best 4 years at UCSB. How is it going to get any better? Well, let me tell you, it will. When Dean Hale asked me to speak with you today, I didn't want to talk to you like a lawyer to a judge or like a chairwoman to a commission. I wanted to talk to you like a friend, like a little bit older friend. We're meeting for coffee, perhaps cocktails. You know, most commencement speakers, they want to give you these conventional pearls of wisdom. I'm not that person. Instead, today, I want to show you the oysters that I was presented with, how I learned to shuck them for myself and turn them into pearls for me. So I'm going to give you a half a dozen oysters today. First thing I learned is age is just a number. So as Dean Hale said, I did start this school quite young. I went on to start law school at age 20. If you notice, I wasn't of legal drinking age until law school. Just ruined my political career there. You know, what might sound braggalicious today was really scary and unnerving for me. I remember wishing I was older, not just because I could take wine tasting as an elective at UCSB. Instead, I wanted more years under my belt so I could translate to my older colleagues that I'm an equal. I'm a contemporary with formidable experiences. I wanted to have respect of my colleagues from the get-go despite my young age. Well, now I look at you and I'm in my 40s. Has the coin flipped. I look at your faces and I wish I was younger, not just for vanity reasons to stave off Botox or fillers. You know, not just because, you know, I want to go to see Travis Scott and dance and not look like I'm literally in sicko mode. But I want to be younger, I want to be tech savvy, I want to be quicker on the draw with new books, blogs. I want to be part of your generation that embraced the iPhone, self-driving cars, and this broader sense of altruism and community. I'm jealous. So more often than not, you'll find yourself in a situation where you wish you're from a different time or different age. To that end, I tell you, you can't change your birth year, but you can always change your attitude and your perspective. So age is just a number, but being young or old, that's a state of mind. The next oyster I got for you was inspired by Bob Marley. Get up, stand up for your rights. So typically by end of first year of law school, or folks have things lined up, like a clerkship, summer internship. I went back to Vegas. I didn't have anything lined up. I actually met with one of my friend's dads, who was a big law firm name partner. And I asked him for a summer internship, and he said, sorry, Puoy, all the spots were filled. Well, I didn't want to twiddle my thumbs my first year, so I went down to the municipal courts in Las Vegas, where the judges, they're more like misdemeanors, that they hear. There's no budget for law clerks or anything like that. So I just turned up, I spoke to 2 muni court judges. I said, hey, can I come in? Can I volunteer? Might as well try to learn something. Well, as the summer progressed, the state of Nevada was sponsoring this legislation called Ring Around the Valley. This was about 1997. Vegas is booming, construction is going. The state legislation proposed this arbitrary ring around the valley, which basically said no growth outside that ring. So there was this hearing being conducted via satellite from Carson City to Las Vegas. Every major developer, prominent business person in town was at this hearing, including my father, a PhD econ professor for over 20 years, turned real estate developer. He was there. He calls me, he says, and this was 15 minutes before the hearing started, "Boy, are you coming to this hearing? Come now." So I raced down there just in time to learn what this ring around the valley was. It was really an arbitrary ring that circled in and grandfathered all of the hoity-toity families, the established, wealthy, rich landowners, and carved exclusive land pockets for these folks within the perimeter. Seemingly, my family had some modest holdings. It excluded us among many others. So after the formal testimony of all these agendized speakers, they opened it up obligatory public comment. So I'm sitting there, my dad is sitting next to me. He nudges me. I shirk it off. He does it again, but this time with the head movement towards the speaking area. I resist again, only to be met by my dad literally giving me a full NHL elbow check, commanding me in his beautiful Thai English accent, "Boy, go talk. Go say something for the family." So I did. I wasn't sure where it came from, but I basically called out the entire state Senate for a solid 15 minutes for trying to impose this growth policy that wasn't in sync with Vegas, that was usurping local authority, and most egregiously playing favorites. By the time I finished, the entire room erupted with an applause and ovation. Even our county commissioners were moved. But what stood out most that day was when I was walking out. Remember that law partner that I hit up for a job earlier that summer? Well, he happened to be in the room. Unbeknownst to me, he was there, comes up to me, smiles, shakes my hand, and says, "You're coming to work for me next year." So I was hoping to avoid long-winded stories, but this one needed to be told, especially on Father's Day. You see, it was my father's elbow and him nudging and encouraging me to always take that Bob Marley stand, and that inadvertently catapulted me towards the legal career that I enjoy today. So I say to you, Dad, I love you, I honor you, happy Father's Day. And I say to the class, obviously, get up, stand up for your rights. This third oyster really comes from and presented itself when Governor Brian Sandoval called me and asked me to serve on the Colorado River Commission. That commission essentially oversees Nevada's interest in the Colorado River. We look at Hoover Dam, Lake Mead, and essentially water management, but also power, hydropower, substations, electrical transmission lines. All of these things I knew zero.com about. So despite my diverse background, I had no experience in these two fields. But I had to tell Governor Sandoval my response. I wanted to accept this appointment, but I really didn't know how or why when I had no experience. I decided to come clean. I said, "Governor, I don't know anything about this, why me?" He looks at me and he says, "Puoy, this is okay. I know you're smart, and I know you'll do what it takes to learn what you need to know and to do a great job for the state of Nevada." So, this common mantra these days, fake it till you make it, that's also not me. I think you should be candid about what you don't know, because in doing so, you'll earn the respect of those around you, they'll trust you, and believe it or not, they'll cradle you to teach you that skill set that you need to move forward. So, I don't know is a perfectly acceptable answer. Another reason for that pit was sitting there 23 years ago is, so I have this degree, but what do I really know? Let me tell you, you know much more than you think you do. So this pearl was found by me, probably developing over an extensive period of time. You see, when I was going through UCSB, this was when the EU was forming. You have 28 nation states trying to come together to put this, collective political, socioeconomic, cohesive group together. I don't want to bore you, but for you poli-sci grads, that was a very important and exciting time. The EU got underway in 1993, 520 million some odd folks banding together. Why I say it was an exciting time was the professors here taught me not only to examine that process, the challenges and obstacles that the EU presented, but also the behavior and demands of the certain nation states coming into the EU. Have you ever had a bunch of friends try to get together and figure out where you're going for dinner or whatever club you want to go out to the night before? Trying to get that consensus is hard enough, let alone getting 28 countries to agree. So fast forward to the Colorado River Commission again. We've had the worst drought consistently for 20 years. The 7 basin states, including California, has been suffering. So what happened? 7 states had to get together and address this problem. And I will tell you, by having that critical thinking that was taught to me here at UCSB, I was able to get my head around that. This initiative spearheaded by John Ensminger and the Southern Nevada Water Authority, it took 2,152 days to grind this out and get it done. So right now you're probably taking for granted what you've learned. You didn't realize what you're aware of, but everything's been imprinted in your mind. So UCSB, it didn't teach me what to think, but it gave me an education on how to think and how to process things. And what you've done over the past 4 years has developed your tools to chisel your tunnel to where you want to go. So you do know much more than you think. So this last sort of pearl or oyster that I found a pearl in is really dealing with the current times and the use of technology. And this to me is extremely important, in a world where technology is ever advancing and displacing jobs. So this one is, use technology as a supplement to your life, not a substitute for it. So I don't know how many of you have heard of Burning Man. Well, I'm not a burner per se, but I've been to a couple. I've been to a few Coachellas, a couple EDCs, and I'm proud to have gone to Life is Beautiful for every year since its inception. So Burning Man, one of the camps at Burning Man, I believe it was Robot Heart, started this side camp called Further Future. So Further Future was really a tech-based music festival, which was held that included your founders of MTV, Tony Hsieh from Zappos, as well as Google. So this one year I went, I had the privilege of hearing Eric Schmidt, the chairman of Google, speak to several hundred folks dressed in Bedouin robes, steampunk costumes, and futuristic outfits. Eric Schmidt held this town hall style talk, and he answered questions. And one of the questions posed was, Mr. Schmidt, in a world where technology is displacing so many jobs, how do I keep from becoming obsolete? I thought this was totally ironic, considering he's a man that leads up a company that's doing the displacing. But his answer was simple. Find out what makes you different. Find out what makes you irreplaceable. Hone your craft and your set of skills that make you unique. Well, that kind of sounds really vague and sounds easier than done, but it can be. So I shucked this oyster and I found this pearl. To me, finding what makes you special is what makes you human. It requires you to put down your iPhones, put your iPads down, and focus on human connectivity. I'm laughed often because I talk to everyone. I'm kind of that chatty Cathy. But how else are you going to find and experience human interaction? You see, tech will never, ever replace human feeling, emotion, and connectivity. You can't write a love song without falling in love. And you can't paint a masterpiece just because you saw it on Instagram. So remember, use technology as a supplement to your life and not a substitute for it. So this last thing isn't really an oyster or pearl. It's something I've had a law partner for 18 years, David Brown. And he said this to me very early on. He said, there are 3 things in life no one can tell you what to do: where you live, where you work, and who you love. Many people will try to influence you in these 3 most fundamental decisions. Trust in your heart, trust in yourself. And if anything that you take away from me speaking with you today, I hope that I was able to foster trust in these 3 decisions, especially due to the education and tools you gathered here at UCSB. You know, I can't pay off your student loans today like the commencement speaker at Morehouse. I'm sorry. But I can certainly assure you that the education that you received at UCSB has armed you with that skill set to enable you to pay them off yourselves. You've got that tool, those tools to shuck your own oysters and to find your own pearls of wisdom. And if you can't tell, I love music. I'm a big music head, and I'm a big fan of Post Malone. So if you hear that song, Better Now, you probably think that you are better now. I hope you can say, yes, I am. I got my degree from UCSB. So lastly, I'll tell you, your degree isn't a piece of paper. It's your passport. It's your passport to life experiences. So, class of 2019, I'm so proud of you. I'm so excited and so honored to have had this opportunity today. Watch out, world. Here you come. Thank you.